The one, the only, former governor of the great state of Mississippi, our friend Haley Barbour. Haven't talked to you in a long time. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Hey, Paul, I'm fine. Glad to be back.
It's going to get warm in Yazoo City.
It is going to get warm in Yazoo City. I couldn't help but appreciate that boy from Greenville. You know, Steve played at my first inauguration.
Is that right?
He did. That's right.
Steve has done a great job as ambassador, and he has done a great job on that program every Thursday and Friday, and we had a great catalog of interviews. I mean, it's just absolutely amazing. All right. So we've had the governor on, we've had the lieutenant governor on, we've had the some semblance of what the speaker thinks, because I think it does mirror what the lieutenant governor says. So from a guy who has a multitude of experience, unfortunately going through some of these disasters, your thoughts, sir?
Well, the law in Mississippi is clear. It has been for 40 years. There's a statute that says the governor is authorized to accept federal emergency payments. Secondly, there's a statute that says the governor has the authority to spend those payments through the Department of Financial Administration. That's been a law for about 40 years. And the question now is the legislature going to try to usurp the governor's well-established authority? And if so, why? I mean, it can't be about anything but power. The governor, one of the reasons it works for the governor, and let me back up to Katrina, Paul. Worst natural disaster in American history, but it happened essentially one day. On August 29th, it came into the Gulf Coast and obliterated it and went out through North Mississippi that night. And circumstances changed because we learned about this problem or that problem, or something in the process of getting fixed didn't work out. But we knew exactly what we were dealing with in the first week, and everything was literally, the whole disaster happened one day. Mm-hmm. This is a disaster that has been going on for months. It's going to continue to go on for months. I can tell you, as governor, I will never forget going down to the coast and having a meeting of invited all the county officials from the bottom 6 counties. And one of them, who was a senior Democrat, stood up and said, "Governor, look, if this thing's as bad as y'all say it's going to be, then somebody's got to be in charge, and the only logical person is you." And so let me just say to you, a lot of us didn't support you for the election, but if you'll just promise us you'll listen to us, not do what we tell you, but just listen, hear us out, then we're going to support you as the leader here. And that's what happened. And that was a great difference from Louisiana, and it made a huge difference for Mississippi, that I didn't have other people trying to say, I should run this county, or I should run this program, or I should make this decision like Kathleen Blanco had with the mayor of New Orleans. Somebody's got to be in charge, and 174 legislators in charge would have been a really bad mistake in Katrina. In fact, you may have seen this quote. Billy McCoy, who was a speaker when I was governor, and a very strong speaker, and actually a friend of mine. Billy McCoy told Bill Miner, not exactly a hardcore Republican, literally, quote, "Nobody in the legislature expected we would take over appropriating the money." That's a Bill Miner, dean of the press corps, not a Republican, not a conservative, quoted Billy in 2006.
Let me ask you this, because we've developed this, we understand this, that it is an existing law, and you're right, the governor has that authority, but that's not the issue. The issue is that the legislature wants to change that authority, and they want to do it in law, and they want to go through the entire process, which they apparently will do today. The question is then, and I didn't realize this, but I heard it a few moments ago from the lieutenant governor, who says it's specifically only for this pot of money. Does that improve or deteriorate a little bit the argument itself?
Well, it undermines the argument itself. To usurp the governor's authority to spend $1.25 billion, more or less, that is to be spent by the end of the year. Very strict government guidelines, federal government guidelines, strings attached. And yet we know that a month from now, heck, a week from now, this disaster may change dramatically. You know, we may have a resurgence of the really bad cases, and there's some places in America where they're still on the rise, those cases. But it may come back. I mean, this is much, much less static and constant than Katrina.
Yeah.
And nobody ever said, oh, well, the legislature ought to get their 174 heads together and decide how we're going to spend that $25 billion.
Let me ask you this. Also, by the way, the governor did say this morning that the numbers that are going to be released a little bit later on this morning from the health department are going to be the largest numbers we've seen in the number of deaths and also the number of cases. I'm not sure if it's the largest since the numbers have been taken March the 11th or in the last little while. I'm not sure, but not looking forward to those numbers. What does this do to the GOP in the state to pick this fight at this time, this early on in the administration? Does that have consequences?
Well, it certainly has consequences. When I was elected governor, when Kurt Fordyce was elected governor, each one of us recognized that constitutionally the office of governor in Mississippi was weaker than in most states. But my attitude was just because you got a constitutionally weak governor doesn't mean you have to have a governor with a weak constitution. And Kirk was the same way. And I'll never forget Jack Gordon, who was the very senior Democrat from up in Oklahoma. And he was chairman of the Appropriations Committee, and he came to see me and told me that the Lieutenant Governor, Amy Tuck, said he had to clear the budget with me, and that he'd never dreamed that the legislature would have to clear the budget with the governor. I mean, that's a literal true story. Jack used to love to tell. I did too. But this is 40 years of state law, and if somebody wants to say it didn't work, if somebody wants to say the legislature would have done a better job on Katrina, if somebody wants to say why this one is more static and the legislature can come up here and pass a bill and or pass a couple of bills, this thing's going to change a lot. This thing is likely to change a lot between now and the end of the year when we have to have spent the money.
Limited time here, but as former governor, if this happens, if the bill passes, which it looks like it will be, and they may even have enough votes to override a veto, if that should happen, what's your advice to the present governor?
Well, I'm not going to try to give the present governor advice. I think he's got good judgment. I think he's done well on this and been prudent. But I can tell you, I would veto it. And I wouldn't think twice about vetoing it. And I would make very plain to everybody in the legislature, here's why I'm going to veto it. And I am, and here's why.
Is there legal action in this to block it or anything else? Is that a possibility? All of you people are lawyers out there. Is there any recourse that way?
Paul, I'm a recovering lawyer, and I haven't attempted to look at that.
All right.
But I will tell you, if legislatures think about it and people think about it, do you really want this done by a committee? Do you want it done by a committee of 174 people, every one of whom is going to have his or her own special interest, geographic interest in mind? That's why we elect the governor.
Yeah, that is of a concern, and I think most of the people in the state of Mississippi understand that. So, and we've already had people, some of the members of the House and Senate already say that I want my share if this happens. Governor, it's always a pleasure. I wish we had more time. Don't be a stranger. Anytime you have something, give us a call. We'll get you back on.
Thanks, Paul. Good to talk.
Good to talk to you, the former governor of the state from Yazoo City, Mississippi, the one and only Haley Barbour.